As time goes on, fewer and fewer survivors are here to share their stories firsthand. So the question becomes, what happens next? Who carries these stories forward, and how do younger generations connect to a history they didn't live through, but still very much inherit? In this episode of Chosen for What, you'll hear from the children and great-grandchildren of Holocaust survivors, what they know about their family's past, how they relate to it, and what they're choosing to do with that knowledge today. And that begins with Natalie Bruck, a third-generation survivor who shared a particularly close relationship with her grandfather.
There's more to them than just what they survived. When I think of my Zadie, I'm not thinking just survivor. And a lot of people do, of course, and that's not a bad thing, but he was the person that I looked up to outside of just being a survivor. I loved him for who he was, for his love for me, his love for the world, his passion. Um, he was the most selfless person, always caring about others, worrying about them when he was ill and sick, always wanting to help the person next to him. Um, who he was very much shaped, yes, because of what he experienced, but there was a whole other person before the war as well that shaped him to the person that he was. And then he became a completely other person after the war. After the war, became a husband, he became a father. And something that my father always says is that him becoming a Zadie, a grandfather, made him a completely different person. And then something my father said after, when I started helping my Zadie, helping care for him, that I changed him into another version of himself that no one had ever seen. And in a comment my dad says sometimes is that of their generation, it was hard for them to verbally say I love you. So often people would say, like, we know by his actions he loves us. But something that it really bothered me, he couldn't say I love you. So for many years I would work with him and I would say, I love you, Zadie. And he would nod his head like this. And I say, Zadie, what do you say when someone says that? And he's like, I
Yeah.
know, I know, I know. And I said, I know you know, but I need to hear it. And he would always often say, it's not what comes out here. It's always what's in here. And I said, I know that, but it's always nice to hear it sometimes too. And I hate saying the word, but kind of trained him in that sense that he actually, over the years, was able to more easily say, I love you. Um, and something he ended up saying often to me, which I will cherish always, always.
In many ways, third-generation survivors were spared some of the immediate trauma that their parents experienced in being raised by Holocaust survivors. So what did their relationships with their grandparents really look like? And how have their grandparents' stories shaped the people that they are today? Let's hear from Mollie Bowman, the managing director of Living Links.
The way I say it is we got the best of our grandparents, right? Like we got the joys of like growing up with these grandparents in our lives and all of the wisdom that they had to pass down. And we were one generation removed from growing up with their direct trauma, right? It's like a very
Right.
different experience. And I'm no expert on that subject matter, but looking at my dad and his sisters and the way that they hold these memories and carry them forward, it's just from a different vantage point than I have as the grandchild, where I speak with such, awe of the grandmother I grew up with, and from that, it's just a totally different place. That said, I think that there's so much value in intergenerational relationships. So it's a priority that we are bringing together 2Gs, 3Gs, 4Gs even. There's a lot of college students now who reach out to us who are the great grandchildren of Holocaust survivors who are learning their grandparents' stories, but maybe never even met their great grandparents, but know that this is a sacred story for them to inherit and them to steward and pass down. So it's an evolving mission. We're really just in our early stages of building this. But we offer classes for 3Gs, for 2Gs, programs for 4Gs. We're really trying to build out what this could look like.
Beyond the fact that second, third, and even fourth generation survivors share a history and a horrific shared experience, we all seem to be able to find some form of common ground, whether that be in practice or in the way memories show up in our day-to-day lives. Stacy Seltzer is a third generation survivor. Right, because when I have a 2G group that meets every second Sunday for a couple of hours, and what we talk about a lot is our parents, our survivor parents. We talk about what we remember about them and the things they said, and then we talk about our shtick, like it's called a second gen shtick. Is there such a thing as third gen shtick that you have in common with other than what you just said about feeling grateful that you're connected to them, but didn't have that direct parental connection?
Yeah. Well, yes, there definitely are, right? There are times that I've been in a room with people and, I've made a comment like, when I get on a train car and it's really crowded, I think right to the Holocaust. And I'm like, is that make sense? And multiple people around me will say, oh my God, I have the same feeling, right? There are times that trauma has certainly gone down to the
Yeah.
third generation. Um, and then there's also like the beautiful stories where we connect on a level of our grandparents. Two of my board members were talking one day and they realized that their grandparents lived on the same street in the same town. And so there's this beautiful, like, oh my God, they must have known each other and
Right.
we feel close to each other. So these connections that are, multi-generational. So yes, there is definitely trauma and there is definitely feelings that we feel that are similar, but there's also these beautiful stories that connect us. That's also really special as 3Gs.
Dorothy Goldwin is a second generation Holocaust survivor whose own children understand the value and importance of carrying their grandparents' legacy forward.
I have two daughters. One is the older one, Michelle, is more involved right now at this point in her life. And she and I co-chaired. I've been chairman of the Holocaust Committee here, where we bring in speakers and do the Yom HaShoah program. And I've chaired it once by myself. I chaired it once with my older brother. And a couple of years back, for 2 years, I chaired it with my daughter. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful. I just wish that my mother and dad could have seen what she's done. Both of my girls understand the importance of memory and carrying it on. And I have to tell you, my grandchildren, I have 4 grandchildren, they each have 2. They talk about Paula and Mayer all the time. I have my mother's she had her costume jewelry had costume jewelry. And I kept so much that the grandchildren they call it Paula's jewelry. There's a big container of Paula's lipstick. They know not to touch it, that I collected from her house, and I kept it here
Right.
because she never went anywhere with lipstick. So and there's certain words that we say, and we'll say that was Paula's words, and we, kind of joke about it. So they understand that there's that history that has to be continued. And it's wonderful. I'm so proud. And I know that, they were so close. My daughters were both so close to my parents. They couldn't have had more loving grandparents, and they understand. They're both in terms of what's going on in the world today. They're both um, very attuned and involved with it themselves and trying to make the world a better place. And they are also, like me, having some PTSD about the anti-Semitism, the rise of anti-Semitism, and seeing certain things. And we've talked a lot about it. So they know they have to pursue this.
If you liked what you heard today, please be sure to rate, follow, or subscribe to Chosen for What, wherever you get your podcasts, to make a donation or to learn more about the Foundation for Genocide Education. Visit their website at gened.org. Don't worry, the link can be found in the show notes. For the Foundation for Genocide Education, I'm Tommy Schnurmacher. Until next time.